Now,
Can you just tell me?
that
Can you
does,
just, in plain terms, just tell me why you believe the Bible's true? Like the top reason, one reason, two reasons. I mean, dude, you're just like, I don't know. It's just a simple question. Why do you believe the Bible's true, man? Just break it down for me. Easy.
well, the easiest explanation for why I believe the Bible is true is because God has revealed it to me. That's the easiest explanation I can
Okay,
give you.
okay,
I mean, how
fantastic.
else would
Okay,
I
so
know that
let's start.
anything is true?
I have no idea.
What
Okay,
does it
so
mean
how
to
did
say
he?
that
How,
it's revealed?
yeah, how did he reveal this to you, and what does it mean to be revealed? What does that even mean?
Yeah, within the context that I am a contingent being created in the image of God, with the capacity to think his thoughts after him, to rationalize, to be a personal entity. I live in a context where it,
You're just restating the claim.
yeah,
You're
yeah, I live in
always.
a,
No, I just want to know what revelation is. What do you understand that
yeah,
to be?
revel,
Is that a causal relation?
yeah, revelation is that in which God has um, stated facts about reality to me. He has revealed things to me in a way that I can conceive of them in a like manner to him, because I'm made in his image as a personal being who is able to rationalize and conceive of of facts.
Is it something different? Is it something different from communication?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say that he has communicated. He is. Yeah, he's revealed things through a medium of communication. Sure,
Right.
whether that be
Okay.
his design, or whether it be his infallible word, or
Yeah. So the question is just going to be, why is it that you think that he was the one that communicated to you, rather than just the biblical authors?
sorry, can you repeat that one more time?
Why is it that you think he was the one that communicated to you rather than just the biblical authors?
Well, if it was just the biblical authors, well, that would be an insufficient grounds for predication. So I don't know how long you've been listening in, Jack, but we were talking about earlier. We started this conversation by talking about what gives us the authority to speak and predicate on facts.
You know
And
where
so
this
when
is
I
going to
predicate,
go, right? When you say
yeah,
stuff like there would be insufficient grounds for predication, right? You know where that's going to go, right?
yeah. So, well,
I mean, do you know where that's going to go?
I mean, I don't know where you want to take it,
Well,
but
all right, I'll just tell you, right? So I take it that you're making some kind of a claim that what you're calling, see, I don't even really understand what this grounds of predication stuff is. I think that's probably just gibberish if we were to try and analyze it. But let's just grant it for the sake of argument, right? That there'd be these insufficient grounds of predication if the biblical authors uh, alone had written the Bible, right? What I'd want to understand is, I take it that's some kind of a claim, like that unless the Christian God exists, right, there can't be grounds for predication, right? That's essentially what you're saying, right?
yeah.
Just to be clear. Yeah. So where that's going to go is, what's the argument for that claim? That if there are grounds for predication, the Christian God must exist, right? And I'm sure you know that Jeff has been going around asking this question of every prominent presuppositionalist who comes on Clubhouse, right? And no one has an answer.
So, like I said, I don't know how long you've been listening, but I actually went through the necessary attributes to a being who has created through revelatory means. What would be required of this being in order for him to transfer epistemic certainty to us?
But like,
And
I could grant you all of that, right? That wouldn't establish that the Christian God was the only possible one that could
no, I'm
provide that.
saying the only sufficient grounds for predication would be, since we aren't omniscient ourselves, the only sufficient grounds for predication would be this omniscient being that I've
No, no, no.
described
I'm
previously.
not talking about an omniscient being, right? Because they're omniscient, they're putative omniscient beings that are not the Christian God, right? And your claim is much stronger than an omniscient being is required, right? Your claim is that the Christian God is required, and
Yeah.
omniscience is only one property of that God.
Like I said,
So,
Jack, I don't think you were here to hear.
yeah, I'm sure I wasn't. So what I'm asking you
So,
for
so
is
let
the
me go
argument,
through it really quick.
that the Christian God is required.
Yeah, I'll repeat it one more time for you. But yeah, the argument is as follows: the attributes that are necessary are omniscience. Oh, let's say okay. So the attributes are as follows: they are all that God is all knowing. This all knowing God is also all present. He is also all powerful. If he wasn't these three things, then something outside of him, outside of his knowledge or outside of his control, would be able to contradict what it is he is revealing to us. And also, he must be the creator of everything that is not himself. He must be the um, the he must be the ultimate grounds, the unified one for all contingent reality, and he also must be diversified within his oneness. So he must be one, and he must be unified and diversified with equal ultimacy. And the reason for this is because he would need to be personal, and he would need to be personal from all eternity. If he wasn't, then he would be mutable because he would change at the moment of creation by becoming personal and then revealing things to us. And so he must be eternally immutable and both one, being the ultimate grounds of everything, and many, having diversity and personality within his oneness. Okay. And so on top of that, he must be always truth revealing. If he was a deceptive God, then we could always say that, something that he said to us or has revealed to us is false or is a deception. And so these are the necessary attributes that are required if we are going to stipulate that that God has revealed something to us so that we can therefore predicate on what he has revealed to us. And so those are the necessary preconditions of predication.
Yeah, but see, the problem is,
Christian God.
yeah, the problem is with that is that at best, what you've done is cite a set of necessary conditions that the Christian God meets. But that wasn't what I asked you to do, right? I asked you to show me why the Christian God is the only God, right, that could meet those conditions.
Well, so
Why you did not.
if we're going to appeal to an authority outside of ourselves, it's going to have to be a very specific authority. The authority that I just described is the Christian God. It is the triune Christian God who is eternally non-derivative.
But you
Yeah, but
didn't say anything about Yeshua in the Middle East, right? You didn't say anything about him having 12 disciples and
Yeah.
heaven and hell, like just anything.
Yeah, you just gave a bunch of characteristics, right, which rules out certain gods, right, but doesn't rule out all other possible gods, right?
Well, by necessity.
Christian God presumably has certain essential properties, right, such as, for example, that what, like he. Oh no, not yeah. Lots of gods, lots of putative gods have those properties, right? Presumably his human incarnation was born in Bethlehem, right?
Yeah, so I was just giving you the basic necessities for predication. And that in order to predicate, we are going to need to refer to this necessary grounds for predication, which is a very specific God who happens to fit perfectly the Christian God as revealed in
But
Scripture.
I didn't ask you whether he fits those requirements perfectly, right?
Okay, so if you're going to say that you can predicate, I'm going to want to ask you, okay, by what means are you predicating?
Yeah, that's not relevant to the question that I'm asking, right?
Why isn't it relevant?
Because
Because I've
I
given you
asked
my grounds
you,
for predication.
yeah, and you didn't meet the burden, right? You
Yeah,
flunked.
no, I
I
have.
asked you, oh yeah, so then explain to me how it is that if the God that is the grounds for predication, right? If his human incarnation was not born in Bethlehem, right, there couldn't be predication. Explain that.
So explain to me why this is relevant, or maybe just reword it.
Well,
Because
Just enough.
your
Jesus
claim,
was born in
your
Bethlehem.
claim is, right, not merely that, you know, in order for there to be grounds for predication, right, there has to be a God who's omniscient and omnipotent and blah, 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 right? Your claim is that the only God that could be grounds for predication is the Christian God, right? One of the properties of the Christian God is that his human incarnation, or the human incarnation of his second person of the Trinity, right, was born in Bethlehem. Now, I take it that if that were not true, right, there'd be no grounds for predication, right? It wouldn't be possible. And what I want you to do is demonstrate the logical entailment for me, to me, right, from there being grounds for Christian God. That's what I want an
Yeah,
argument
yeah,
for.
that's fine. And I'm presupposing that it is the Christian God, and by necessity, because the exclusion of the Christian God would be necessarily a counterclaim and refute the Christian God. If so by necessity, when I start with the Christian God as my grounds for predication, it is by necessity that this is the transcendental necessity. So by virtue of uh, what is it, the excluded middle,
Well,
the
you
point
would
is,
say the impossibility is
Look, no,
contrary,
look.
but the point.
It's just a
yeah,
trivial
look,
claim. It's just a trivial claim to make that
well,
if the Christian God existed, the other gods that might possibly satisfy this set of conditions wouldn't exist, right? So that's not. I'm not interested in an answer like that. I'm interested in an argument such that if there were to be a God that met these conditions, it would have to be the Christian God, right?
yeah, so it's a trivial claim to say that it is not the Christian God, because I'm going to want to know, from what standard are you predicating on now, and let's examine that and see if you have grounds for predication, because I've already given you my capital for where I get grounds for
Wait a
predication,
minute.
and
Do you
I have,
understand what trivial means?
sure. Would it be, in the way that you're using it, would it be defined as relative or
No,
uh,
that's not what
arbitrary?
trivial means. No, that's not what trivial means.
Okay, enlighten me. How are you using trivial in this sense?
I mean that it's empty, vacuous, that you're not asserting anything of substance, right? You're
Well,
asserting something that's essentially tautological. You understand what a tautology is?
no, go ahead and enlighten me.
It's just shade equals A, that's all it is.
Well, not exactly. But yeah, it's just going to be something like redundancy. Maybe that'll make it clearer. So if I say wet water or married bachelor, I'm sorry, unmarried bachelor, that's a tautology.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's something that's necessarily true, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so I didn't say anything that was trivial on that construal. But in any case, it's beside the point. I'm asking you to give an argument, right, such that for there to be a being that meets these criteria, necessarily, right, it would have to be the Christian God. So you can't assume the Christian God exists, right, prior to the demonstration. I'm asking you to demonstrate that if there's a being that meets these criteria, necessarily he is the Christian God rather than some other God.
Yeah, I believe that it's simultaneous. when it comes to
Just give me the argument.
so the Christian God is necessary by the impossibility of the contrary. I would not be
That's
able
just
to predicate.
repeating the claim.
repeating the claim.
That's just repeating the look.
Why don't you stop over talking them and let them finish? Why don't you shut up and let them finish?
Shirley,
This is what you like to do, Jack.
so
You like to
Tina,
overtalk people
are you gonna
and
do
run
this
on. Why
shit?
don't you let the man finish his statement?
Yeah. Shirley,
Crying out loud.
Surely you've watched enough of these videos.
JT, don't let this man overtalk you. Don't.
Shut your mouth.
You ain't gonna make me shut up. Make me, dude. You're
I'm
not
talking.
gonna make me shut up.
Hey,
Don't let this guy overtalk you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fine. I think that
Sure.
what I've said thus far is uh, it's plenty reasonable. And if you don't find it reasonable, that's fine. Look,
Yeah. So let me respond to that. Okay. It's not reasonable, right, to say that the reason why X is necessary is because if X is necessary were not true, the contrary would be impossible, because that is just to repeat the claim that X is necessary. So to say, right, the reason why X is necessary is because of the impossibility of the contrary, right, is just to say X is necessary because X is necessary, which, as you know perfectly well, is a totally dumb thing to say, not a rational thing to say, not a reasonable thing to say. It's a stupid thing to say, right? And surely you've watched enough of these videos where Jeff Trimble has gone around asking people to justify the first premise of the tag argument, that when they say, oh, due to the impossibility of the contrary, he points out that's just repeating the fucking claim, right? So I'm not asking you to repeat the claim that I'm asking you to justify, right? That's a dumb thing to do. It's not even answering the question. I'm asking you to justify the claim, not repeat the claim. Surely you understand that distinction,
yeah,
right?
I've already
So what's
given,
the justification for the claim? Try
yeah,
again, because you flunked.
yeah. I've already given the justification multiple times,
Yeah,
and now, yeah, and now
repeating
in
the
your
fucking claim.
well, yeah, I've already given the justification for why I am able to predicate on facts. Okay, and that's because I
I
live in
didn't
a
ask
worldview
you what.
context.
I didn't ask you that. I didn't ask you that. I didn't ask you. Or how can you justify that you can predicate, right? That
Yeah,
wasn't
we're
what I
both
asked you. If you had
predicating in
listened,
this room right now. Yeah, we're all predicating in this room right now. And the question is, who's predicating consistently within their worldview system?
yeah.
I'm predicating from a worldview system that presupposes that God is the initiator of all contingent possibility. Okay. And so when I predicate on facts, it is in light of what he has revealed to us by means of his necessary attributes. Okay. And so what I would like to ask you is, since we are both claiming to predicate, from what worldview system are you predicating on, and how do you justify what it is you are saying is true?
Sorry, I don't know why you're asking me any questions, right? You just said.
Oh, so you're not making a
Okay.
counterclaim?
Sorry, why
Are you predicating right now, Jack?
are you done
I'm the
talking?
only one who has to back up my predication.
Sorry, are you done talking? Are you done?
I asked
Because I
you a
want to
question.
respond
Am
to
I
what you said. Yeah, and
the
I
only
asked
one
you
that
a
has to
question which you
justify?
didn't answer. I asked you a question which you didn't answer. So just let me know when you're done so I can respond to what you said.
Yeah, I did answer your initial question
Sorry.
about.
You're going to repeat what you said just now?
Yeah, so I already mentioned. Would you like me to go through the necessary attributes?
No, but
So,
that was just
yeah,
that
so
wasn't the
again,
Christian God though.
yeah. So
That just wasn't the
doesn't
Christian
matter,
God.
right? What he said, Mars Bars, was that he explained how he's justified to predicate things, right? Which is not the proposition under debate. Not
Right.
the proposition that I asked you to justify, right? I didn't ask you to justify that fucking proposition. That's of no interest to me. I asked you to justify a different proposition, right? Which is why it is the case that if there is going to be predication at all, right? If there are going to be grounds for predication, the only possible ground is the Christian God, right? And saying, oh, my justification for that is that the contrary is impossible is to flunk with respect to answering that question, because it's just to repeat the fucking claim. And surely you understand the distinction between justifying a claim and repeating it, right? So I don't know why you're saying you justified how you can predicate on your worldview when that's not the proposition under debate, right? What's under debate is what justifies your claim that the only way there can be grounds for predication is if the Christian God exists. And you did not answer that question. All you did was specify a set of what you claim are necessary conditions that such a being would have to have. And you also claimed that the Christian God meets those necessary conditions, right? But the
Yeah.
fact that those conditions are necessary and the Christian God qualifies as a member of that set, doesn't establish that no other God could be a member of that set, right? And saying it's impossible for other gods to be members of that set is just to repeat the claim I asked you to fucking justify.
Yeah.
So you
So
flunked. So I'm
yeah.
still waiting. I'm still waiting for an argument that establishes the truth of that claim. Right? Now, do you have such an argument or
Yeah.
don't you? That's a yes
So
or
the,
no question.
uh,
And if the answer is yes, give me the fucking argument.
yeah. So if the Christian God is by necessitation, if he is exclusive, okay, if when Jesus says, "I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father except through me," when he says that, then wouldn't it be necessary that if the Christian God exists, that he would necessarily be the correct worldview or the correct God or the true God, and that all other worldviews would therefore by necessity be falsified?
Yeah, and I addressed that point before, so you probably weren't listening, right? What I said was, yes, it's a trivial claim that if it's true that if the Christian God exists, no other God could exist, right? Sorry, no other God would exist, right? Uh, that therefore there'd be no other God, right? That's a trivial point, right? The issue is not if the Christian God could exist, would there be would it be possible for another God to exist at the same time? I'm granting for the sake of argument that's true, right? So I'm not asking you to provide some conditional statement, right? Like if the Christian God would exist, no other God would exist, right? I can grant you the truth of that conditional, right? The question is, what justifies the claim in the antecedent of that conditional, right? The claim that is the antecedent of that conditional, which is the Christian God does exist, therefore no other God does exist, right?
Yeah, because if you're going to postulate anything that gives you grounds for predication, it's going to necessarily be the Christian God. That's, I mean, I'm
That's just
presupposing my.
repeating the claim that I'm asking you to justify, right?
I'm sorry
Do
that
you
you don't.
understand?
You
You understand? Look, do you understand the difference between repeating a claim and justifying it?
Yeah. So when I
That's a
predicate,
yes or no question.
yeah, I know the difference.
Great. Okay, so now what I want you to do is not repeat the claim that the Christian God exists or the claim that the Christian God is the only possible ground for intelligibility or predication or whatever it is you think he's the necessary ground for, right? I'm asking you not to repeat that claim because you understand there's a difference between repeating a claim and justifying the claim. I want you to give me an argument that establishes that claim rather than merely repeats it.
Yeah. So the Christian God is proven by the impossibility of the contrary, and I already laid out what
All
the
right.
necessary attributes for predication would be.
All right.
I've
So
already
you
discussed,
just fucking
laid it out.
repeated the claim. You just
I gave you
fucking
the
repeated
argument.
the claim
You
again.
dismissed the argument.
The, the argument saying
Yeah.
that the contrary is impossible is a fucking argument rather than just repeating the fucking claim?
No, I gave you the justification for what is necessary for predication. Okay.
Yeah.
I
And what
laid
did I
out
say to that?
the
What
very
did I say to
attribute.
that? What did I say to that?
You dismissed it.
No, I didn't fucking dismiss it, right? I pointed out, right, that specifying the conditions specifying the conditions,
Hey, Jack,
right, that are required.
with all due respect, you need to take a chill pill, brother.
So
You
boot him down.
I don't understand why you have to be such a prick in this conversation.
Because you're being dishonest.
No, I'm not. I've
Okay.
already laid out exactly what my position is, that I presuppose the Christian God, and that the Christian God is the necessary prerequisite for predication. And so when we predicate, since we're all claiming to predicate in this room, okay, since we all claim that, what are the grounds for that predication? I've given you mine. Now, what are yours?
Yeah, it's not relevant to my question, right?
Yeah.
My question is, see, because I'm saying, well, I'm not presupposing that the Christian God exists, right? So what I'm asking is, if you have a claim such that if there's predicability or predication, if there are grounds for predication at all, the only thing that could provide that is the Christian God, right? I'm asking you to give an argument for that claim, right? Now, if you say, which I'm willing to grant for the sake of argument, that for there to be grounds of predication, right, there has to be an omniscient, omnipotent being that's perfectly rational, that's the creator, that's triune, has all these different properties, right? That doesn't establish that the only God, right, that could possibly fulfill that set of requirements is the Christian God, right? I've said that multiple times now. You need a further argument to establish, right, that the God that does meet that set of requirements, the only God that can meet that set of requirements is the Christian God. Right?
Yeah, the way
you don't have an argument for
the way that I demonstrate that is by the folly of its denial. And so since you are making the implicit claim that the justification that I've given is inadequate, I would like to hear your justification for predication.
Sorry, if you say that the denial commits the interlocutor to folly, is that the claim that there would be a contradiction involved in its denial?
No, you're making an implicit counterclaim, saying that you do not accept the justification that I've provided. Okay, well, let's hear from your perspective, from your worldview, what it is that grounds intelligibility and predication.
Sorry, did you not hear my question? Did you not hear
I already
explained.
I already explained
I asked you what folly
what my
means.
criterion is.
Yeah, so I asked you what folly is. Now, what's folly mean? When you say that the person who denies it is committed to some kind of folly, right? Is the claim that they're committed to some kind of contradiction?
No, I'm saying that folly is irrationality or absurdity or
Yeah. So what do those mean? What do those mean if not a commitment to some contradiction?
Yeah, so the contradiction, if there is a contradiction, I would say the contradiction is that you are predicating, yet with no justifiable grounds for that predication.
Great. Give me the argument for that.
Yeah, so you're going to say that what the things that you predicate on are the truth. They are in fact the case. By what means are you doing that?
Why are you asking a question? I'm asking you to give an argument.
Yeah, what I'm assuming is that
I'm not asking you to assume anything. I'm asking you to give an argument, not to assume.
Okay. So you're saying that something is the case, but yet you have no identifiable justification for why something is.
That's another claim. Your claim isn't merely that I don't have one. Your claim is that I can't have one, right? So you need to give an argument that establishes the necessity of the fact that I don't have one, not merely the contingent fact that you claim is true that I don't have one.
Are you all knowing?
Why are you asking me a question? I asked you to give an argument. Do you have an argument or not?
Yeah, so the way that I prove the impossibility of the contrary is by performing a reductio ad absurdum of your worldview.
No, because
you might not like that.
Listen.
Yeah, you may not like that.
There's an infinite number of possible. Yeah, there's an infinite number of possible worldviews, right?
Well, let's just focus on.
And so no, we're not going to do that because you're making a stronger claim. You're making a stronger claim. Why are you over talking me? You're making a stronger claim. Now you're over talking again. Yeah, you're making a stronger. Yeah, now you're over talking again. You're making a stronger claim. Now you're over talking me again. Now you're over talking me again. You're making a stronger claim, right? Which is not merely that I lack the grounds, right? But that necessarily anybody, right, any worldview which is not the Christian worldview would not provide the grounds. And that just takes us back to where we were before, right? Which is that you need to provide a justification for that, not ask me
No,
any questions,
what I'm
right?
saying
Because
that
you're the one making the claim. This is the claim that you're making, right? Necessarily, right? If you deny this, right, you're committed to some contradiction, right?
and
So what I'm
and
asking, yeah,
I
so what I'm
exposed
asking you to do, what I'm asking you to do is give an argument, right?
perfect.
A reductio ad absurdum. So you start from the denial of the claim, right? And you show how it commits the denier, right, to the affirmation of two contradictory propositions. I want you to lay that argument out for me. I don't want you to ask me any fucking questions. I don't want you to assume anything about my worldview, right? I want you just to give the argument from the denial of that claim, right, to the contradiction that's entailed.
I
Now you
yeah yeah I exposed the absurdity of the denial by performing a reductio ad absurdum of the person who is denying the Christian God.
Yeah, why are you
And so
wasting our time
to
with this
run through,
bullshit? Didn't you hear
yeah,
what I just said? I asked you to give a fucking argument. That's a yes or no question. All right, I'll repeat the question. Do you have such an
all right,
argument?
you
That's
don't
a
like
yes
the
or
process.
shut up. That's a yes
You
or
don't
no
like the process.
question. That's a
Yeah,
yes or
I
no
can't have a
question. Do
discussion
you
with
have
you
such?
if you're
Do you?
unwilling
Why do you keep over
to
talking
allow
me?
me to
Why
examine
do
your
you
worldview.
keep over talking me? Okay, I'll repeat the question. Do you have such an argument? That's a yes or no question, right? And if you answer yes, just give me the argument. I don't want to hear anything else. So do you have such an argument? You
So
flunked.